Hey, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for the August edition of Talks and Takes. Glad to have everyone back. Hope all your summers are going well. We've got a great lineup today with a bunch of topics, and joining me again are my esteemed friends and colleagues, Sara, Bill, and Blair. I'm actually going to start off today talking about some latest research that came out. It was done by Club Intel, sponsored by ABC Fitness Solutions, and supported and coordinated by the IHRSA Foundation. A few things I wanted to highlight coming out of that survey of COVID era members and about their likelihood to come back to the gym and sort of what the future looks like within our segment of the industry. This is one great finding that I think was a big takeaway, and that is that fitness in the consumer's mind has really expanded to be broader than just physical exercise itself, and to include mental health and acuity as well. In fact, when they rated and ranked sort of why they were interested in being more physically active and getting in better shape, et cetera, and returning to the club, here are their top three answers. Number one, 46% said they wanted it simply to be more active. 35% said their goal was to improve their mental well-being, and 32% said weight loss. For those of us that have been in the industry for quite a long time, we know that weight loss traditionally has always been in that number one spot. So I think one of the takeaways for me, at least, was the fact that the mind shift has occurred a little bit, pushing up just the benefits of being physically active, and people are being much more aware of how beneficial that is, not only for their physical improvement, but for their mental well-being as well. A couple other highlights I wanted to share, and that is that in spite of their likelihood to return to the club or not return to the club, 25% of Americans feel like they would like to improve their physical activity. So for those of us in the health club business, there's 25% of the population that in this survey said, I really would like to become more active. And correspondingly, there was only 9% of Americans that said, no, I really don't have any interest in being more active, much less joining a gym. I'm content to maintain my sedentary lifestyle. It just does not interest me. So we've always said, we're never going to reach everybody, but I think there's some good news is two things I'd ask you to take away from this. One is there's 25% of the population or thereabouts that says, man, I really am wanting to be more active. And then the second takeaway is, as you're thinking about your programming as we come out of the COVID era, pay attention to the fact that people are redefining sort of what it means to be physically active, and their goals are not necessarily weight loss and aesthetics. They're really looking at their mental well-being and just the overall benefits of being physically active. Blair, go ahead.
Yeah. Bryce Hastings at Les Mills has done quite a bit of research on this as well. And so here's some other good news to take away from that with weight loss moving down to number 3. Weight loss had the highest in the US, weight loss as a motivator in the United States had the highest correlation corresponding with quitting exercise. Yeah. So the highest negative correlation to exercise adherence was, the extrinsic motivation of weight loss. Now, I wonder if two of those aren't maybe a little bit more intrinsic motivation than extrinsic motivation. I'm not.
Good point.
There's a little bit of fuzziness between that, right? I don't think it's
right.
Hard-edged as extrinsic and intrinsic completely. There are certainly those things that are great intrinsic motivators, like this is fun, right? that's probably on the way on the end of intrinsic motivation. I think consistent with Michelle Sager's research as well. It's wonderful to see more and more people interested in fitness for reasons other than weight loss.
Yeah, you're right. And when referencing Michelle Seeger, one of the things we've said on this show before, but I think it bears repeating at least one more time, and that is we're so comfortable saying fitness is where people need to be, but fitness, just the connotation of fitness is really a high bar, too high a bar, in fact, for a lot of the population. Being physically active and moving is really more the way we need to approach it, I think. Go ahead, Sara.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that people are focusing on building immunities. I think they're focusing on being healthy. And that's where I think the transition for mental well-being has become extrinsic, because more and more people see that as part of a total wellness package that they want to have.
Right.
McKinsey actually created, and I just dawned on me, and I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head, but they're saying the wellness market, that entire wellness market, is not just growing, but growing exponentially. And they break it down into 6 different categories, of which fitness is one of the categories in that wellness market. I think Sarah's going to hit on a little bit later some of the other things that maybe centers can do to kind of hit on some of the other aspects of what the consumer's saying they're incredibly interested in as we come out of this pandemic. And I think Sarah's dead on. I think people have some fear, and I think that fear is kind of driving, I need to be healthier.
Yeah.
And
Bill, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was interesting about that McKinsey article, because I read that this morning, and they really link, they're like talking about fitness centers pulling in all these other aspects, you know, making sure they look at, maybe they should sell makeup, maybe it's a total package of how things you can do to make people feel good about themselves. And I read an article that actually plastic surgery has the most positive effect on people's mental state, which is very sad, but
it is
unfortunately true.
I was looking over some of the research that ABC put out concerning members coming back, and that mental wellness piece you talk about, Brent, that fits into what we've all talked about, the social aspect of being around other humans. And
right.
The stat that I'm going to throw at you, 43% of the people in the survey gave reasons for rejoining the gym, and to get out of the house. Just to get out of the house, to go somewhere else. So that's in that mental wellness, well-being bucket that you talk about. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's good too. All right, Sarah, you got a timely topic, and I think you created a video that'll give us some recent memories of the Olympics.
I almost feel bad about this one because it's so depressing. It's like every topic I picked this month is just sad. And I looked at Simone Biles and I saw her stepping down and stepping away from these multiple gold medals. And she was our hero. She was on the cover of Time magazine, cover of People magazine. She was all over the news. She was featured on CNN and Fox News, everywhere. And she steps away. And it's like the dedication, the sacrifice, the focus, and that her whole identity is brought in. And suddenly she's a failure. She leaves, she quits, she walks away. Now, how does this relate to our industry? We have to make these tough decisions as owners, as personal trainers. Who are we gonna unfurlough? What decisions where is that date that we're going to circle on our calendar where we have to make the decision if we stay open, if we stay closed, if we put a mask on, if we require vaccinations? I wonder why are we celebrating this failure of Simone Biles, or are we actually looking at the positive mental health choices she's making? And I like that Apollo Ono said that the mind is the greatest asset or the world's largest prison. And that really moved me, because I think athletes and facility owners, health club owners, we're the heroes. We're where we want to be. We've made it. And then suddenly we have to step away. So I look at where's the finish line and what's going to happen. Like, Brent, you were the interim CEO. I know I'm scaring you right now, but you were the interim CEO and the savior of IHRSA. You step away, and it's exciting. We have someone entering new, but how do we rebuild? What are the choices we're making? What are the new careers and the new paths? And one little last thing is, I went to see Bruce Springsteen on Broadway, and by the way, everybody had to show their vaccination card, and the theater was packed. It was really cool. He's famous for the song and the album Born to Run, yet he has settled 3 miles from his hometown. So are we all going to return? Are we all going to work for Eddie Talk and become Rex Roundtable people, and consultants when we leave this industry, or where do we go? So
Are you suggesting that's not real work, Sarah? That's real work.
Well, where are our roots? Where are our commitments? Where do we feel like we belong? And why can millennials make these changes quicker? Maybe because they don't have these stronger ties and commitments and responsibilities. But this is something we have to think about. Do we step away, or are we going to step back in?
This translates in so many areas of life that we've talked about on this show, from people sort of reevaluating and recalibrating their work-life balance, how meaningful their careers are. We've shared before the enormous number of people that are leaving their jobs and starting their own businesses, and people are just really dissatisfied with maybe perhaps their work-life balance before. They're kind of rearranging their priorities. So I think you're right. It's a very deep topic.
I think if we've had 22% of the industry shut down, there are some of those that came with great stress and anguish, and some of those that were simply spreadsheet decisions. And the difference is, Sara used the words dedication, sacrifice, and focus. When you're a small club owner, and when you got into this business because of your passion for fitness, there's a lot more to deal with if you're thinking of closing something down than if you're comparing a portfolio of locations and saying, these are bad leases over here. Right. And so that 22%, that number, hidden in that number, is an extreme amount of pain. You also said your self-identity. 40 years in this business, it is your self-identity. And so of those 22%, some of those came with just an extreme level of pain, and others were probably just a signature.
Yeah, but I also don't think it's ever totally a spreadsheet. I have some very good friends who work as consultants and go in and evaluate businesses from the outside, so they don't have that personal influence on the decision making, so that it is the best economic decision that can be made. And they come back, and I'm chatting over a very immunity helping red bottle of wine or whatever, and we're chatting, and these decisions are heartfelt, very difficult.
Different level.
Yeah. All right, I think we're ready for the next topic, right?
My only question, Blair, to you, do we know, just either, wild ass guess or guesstimation on what percentage of the 22 are independent personal life decisions versus big enterprise operations that cut their bottom 10% of their performers? Do we have any idea of that?
That's a great question, Bill. We heard that 28% of clubs in the state of Washington have closed down, and I think almost every one of them would have been more, smaller studio, smaller gym.
That's what I read. I read like 56% of all the clubs, I think there were 9,000 clubs that closed, were independent health clubs or private studios. Very impactful on the small business owner.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So the next topic is, do you know the health of the U.S.A? And we put that out there as a little bit of a teaser for all of you in the audience today, because we want to give you an opportunity to think, do I really kind of know what the latest numbers are about the health of particularly people in the U.S., although we've got a couple numbers that are worldwide. So I'm going to share some of these, and these are courtesy of MedFit, who's also going to be a partner, and want to make sure everybody knows they're going to be at the IHRSA Convention and Trade Show in October. They're doing a pre-conference the day before the IHRSA convention starts. So on Tuesday, there's a complete medical track with a lot of great sessions We talk a lot in our industry about becoming more medical and becoming part of the healthcare continuum. This is a way to accomplish that. But here's some of the research that they've shared just recently. So 40% of the U.S. adults are considered obese today. We know that number continues to trend upward, and they're predicting in the next 5 years that that number will exceed 50% of people in the United States will be considered obese. Hypertension affecting over 100 million U.S. adults, 30 million U.S. adults with type 2 diabetes, at least 50 to 60% of the adult U.S. population have at least one chronic disease. 25 to 40% have two or more. Osteoarthritis affects over 30 million U.S. adults. Cardiovascular disease responsible for 18 million deaths worldwide. That's 1 in every 4 adults in the U.S. So there's a little bit of startling statistics. And the reason we wanted to share that with you was a little bit to highlight the fact that we still have this epidemic of unhealthy behaviors, mostly that can be controlled through lifestyle choices, which is, of course, what our industry is all about. So COVID transmission and the effects of COVID on people's health, and of course, the mortality rates has really gotten the news and media, as it should, over the last year, now 18 months, and continuing. But at the same time, these other factors are still so much a part of our society and still present us an opportunity of how we can impact people's health on a really broad spectrum. So these other diseases are not going away. There's been many that have suggested, if you look at the all-cause death rates for mortality, that they tend to be going down as related to these diseases because some of those are being pigeonholed as related to COVID. So there may be some of that, which, if anything, would skew these numbers lower and may present them not as being quite so dramatic. But any way you look at, the numbers are really, really significant. We have such an opportunity to make a difference in the health of the populations, not only here in the U.S., but around the world, again, with things that to a large extent can be controlled through lifestyle choices. And Bill, I know, active wellness, your whole name of your company, what y'all are all about, really supports this sort of broad-based view of how we can help people.
Yeah, it's really blown away by that stat you just threw out there, Brent. Virtually everybody over 60 has at least one joint issue. And think about that, what's the number one thing that leads to physical decline and downward cycle? It's lack of mobility, right? And so, just focusing on programs for each one of those, but that one in particular, otherwise healthy, but with a joint issue, that joint issue can lead to all those other issues with obesity, diabetes, heart disease, because of lack of mobility. And
right.
We're in the increased mobility business, right? I mean, so I think there's a lot of there to look at those things and not just go, oh, interesting stats, but what can I do to address those things that are going on in my consumer's mind? I was joking around with somebody the other day and they said, oh yeah, my social calendar is all medical. I spend all my time visiting medical professionals. That's a lot of people's social calendar as they get older.
Right.
And so, rather than just taking these numbers and going, great information, Brent, appreciate you sharing, but what can you do about it? What can you program around it? How can you listen to your consumers and their issues from that paradigm and go, hey, how can I help support these things that you're living through?
I wonder if, Bill, on that point, right, the movement piece and the number of people over 60 that have at least one joint issue, that could be a potential key for getting to the others, right? I mean, just the idea that you can maybe tap into enjoying life more by being able to move, whether it's traveling and be able to, walk around Brussels or whatever, I don't know, right?
Because they're not mutually exclusive, right?
Right.
The hypertensive person might have cardiovascular disease, might have diabetes as well, and a knee issue. I mean,
but the number one reason that they have these chronic diseases is overweight, is being obese. And more people die from osteoporosis than die from breast cancer, uterine cancer, and ovarian cancer combined, according to Tufts University, is this obesity. And we can't just keep getting the fitter. We've got to do unique programs. There's a Way to Go program with this woman named Rachel Luria that works with overweight individuals. We have to think about our marketing and think about bringing in this obese, unfortunate chronic disease individuals.
Yeah, and before we go to the next topic, just to remind everybody, you know, the research continues to verify broad-based, statistically relevant research about COVID, and the people that are most likely to be impacted the worst, meaning go to the hospital, be admitted to the ICU, and potentially proceed to passing from COVID. The precursors for that are obesity and physical inactivity, as well as, of course, age and other underlying conditions. But it's a very real predictor of COVID mortality.
Brent, you were weren't you giving us a statistic yesterday when we were chatting about the number of COVID cases that have resulted or been impacted by obesity? Wasn't it a huge percentage?
Yeah, I think it was 34%, research article by a physician that's a part of a board. I don't remember it right off the top of my head right now, but it was statistically relevant. Again, to Sarah's point, obesity plays such a role in so many of these factors, and COVID's one of them, for sure.
All right. Vax up or mask up?
Yes.
Roll it.
Yet again, another brilliant statement.
Chicago is going to reimpose an indoor mask mandate Friday, requiring everyone 2 years old and older, vaccinated or not, to wear a mask while indoors in public settings.
So, you know, other cities, and what's interesting about this too is how localized this is becoming. Other cities, you've got New York, of course, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, New Orleans. So it's happening at a city level. And so then you sort of start to wonder how your alliance, do we have the right inroads into cities, or are we at the state level? I think the big question here is just whether you follow your state's mandates or lack of mandates. So you saw Equinox jump out ahead of mandates in New York City and require vaccinations before the city did. In fact, that may have even helped trigger the city to do that. So Joe, I wanted this topic because on Monday here in the state of Washington, mask mandates went into effect. And I will tell you personally, I struggled like hell with this, going into this and thinking, you know, one of the spear point of our core values in our club, the number one is take personal responsibility. And we explain what taking personal responsibility is, right? And so I'm vaccinated, it's took personal responsibility for that. And if not, then you're personally responsible for protecting yourself. But then the state comes over the top with this mandate. And I actually spoke to some of the CEOs here in the Valley and said, what if I don't follow this? What if I do what we've been doing? Ultimately, we decided to follow it. We got a lot of information out ahead of time. And on Monday, the first day of mask policy, we had to call the police once and had a 24-year-old female removed from the gym. And it's been smooth from there. But I think that's the question you have to ask yourself is if there are no mandates in your state, you know, what is your policy? How does it align with your market? How does it align with your brand? I think that is critical to ask. And I'm also wondering if some of these policies aren't moving from, you know, there's something in policy making called the Overton window. And the Overton window represents what the public is talking about that was once unthinkable. And once it moves into that Overton window, it starts to become acceptable and then can set policy. And that Overton window will either get biased towards more freedom or less freedom. It's completely politically agnostic. It's just how policy gets set. And I'm wondering if we're not going to see some effect there. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Well, we only had to call the police twice. We had a member shove and push an employee reminding them about the mask. The member lost it and shoved the employee. And then we had 2 members. That was a COVID mask issue. And then we had 2 members, just an arbitrary cellular phone call fight in the locker room. Just stress, tensions high. It wasn't about masks, it was about phone call, you know. Sara, go ahead.
Yeah, I really wonder about that. SoulCycle did the same thing Equinox did.
Right.
We required the masks. And we have a big concern with our conferences. Does a mask make you feel more confident and safe, or a vaccine requirement make you feel more safe? Or are we scared that it's going to exclude the people that have made a political, religious, medical decision not to get vaccinated? So I look at how is that going to also affect my business? And then legally, we can require our employees to get vaccinated. We can set these policies. This is not a HIPAA violation. So I find that kind of, you know, we can make a decision. We can help get the world vaccinated and safe.
There are a few clubs that have stepped out and are in the process of requiring all their employees to be vaccinated. Chelsea Piers up in New York is one that has made that decision, and there are some others. And they've, you know, there's been some fallout, some employees that have left those organizations based on that decision, but they knew that was coming.
Well, in the medical space, if you don't get vaccinated based on whatever reasons, they're testing those employees twice a week and requiring masks at all the times. We're testing employees once a week if they're not vaccinated for some exemption reason. But you're also having that vax or mask. You also have the testing, because a lot of the conferences are doing instant tests as well. Be vaccinated, get tested when you get here, and wear your mask. You know, so.
Yeah.
So there's a testing component that has resurfaced now.
But you do these 3-day in advance tests, and then you get to the show for 3 days, and it's 6 days. So that's a little risky, and people are forging their vaccination cards. Like
we had to terminate an employee for that, Sara. They had a fraudulently presented a vaccination card, and long-term employee that made it known they didn't want to wear the mask, and so they supplied a fake card, and very unfortunate, which is also a federal crime, by the way.
Right. I was going to say it's a federal document.
How did you find or discover that, Bill? How did you know it was fraudulent?
I don't know, but I am aware of the process that the termination occurred from, and it was pretty clear. And I think at the end of the day, she admitted it, but there was enough suspicion to it that it was pretty obvious.
Yeah. All right, from one cheery topic to the next. Let her rip, Bill.
Oh, great. We have a video, right? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about climate change, and climate change can be lots of things. It can be the environment, or it can be the general climate in which we live our lives and operate our businesses. And how does this overall topic apply to us? The number 5 that was on the list, the reputational damage, that comes into, do your consumers believe that you're a good custodian of the environment? Do you have recycling? Do you have LED lights? Do you have solar? Do you promote good causes that lead you to be a good corporate citizen? Are you a giver or taker when it comes to making the world better with regard to environmental issues? So that's one little area on 5. The increased insurance. We've got wildfires going on. We've got flooding. We've got hurricanes, tornadoes. earthquakes, and you may be in a market where you're not affected by any of that, but it doesn't matter. The increase in those things drive up the industry's cost of insurance. And so even if you're not aware of or experiencing those types of issues directly, you do need to be aware of those issues in budgeting and looking at what's going on in the world, because it will come back to cost us. We all pay for the collective us when it comes to the insurance pools. Regulatory and political uncertainty, cost of compliance. What's this costing us to comply with changes in regulatory issues? What's it costing us as a business to deal with COVID, to deal with any of the changes? Scarcity of resources, that's always talked about with regard to the environment. And, they're talking about food, water, and energy. If people are spending more money on food, if people are spending more money on water, if you're spending more money on energy, that changes your low margin business to even lower margin business. If a typical health club is in the 12 to 15% EBITDA and your consumers have more strain on their budgets and you've got more strain on your utilities, you've got a situation going on that you need to be thinking through on a macroeconomic, supply and demand and margin basis. And then, the last thing is the facility damage. There's flooding where it wasn't expected to be flooding. There's fires where you would hope there would never be fires. And, how does the facility operate with phone tree, disaster preparation, business interruption insurance, business interruption processes? So this is a lot packed into this climate change, but paying attention to it and translating it back to your business, I think, is critical. So I just wanted to set the table with that and see what you guys thought.
Well, damn, Bill, you did an awesome job of applying that back to business. And I'm serious. And the whole point about business interruption insurance and that, I think there's, I look at how some are taking advantage, and I mean this in a positive way. And I'm thinking of RSG and Rainer Schaller and what they did with the new Gold's Gym in Berlin. It is the highest possible rating you can get. Now, it's the equivalent of like Leeds here, right? Like the most environmentally friendly, sustainable facility. And then tie that back to the economic theory of utility theory and how people purchase. They apply utility theory. I'm going to get the greatest value for this dollar here compared to spending this dollar over there. And the mindset is shifting, where utility theory is now no longer just the functionality, it's the other things that you described. People are willing to pay more for locally sourced produce. People are willing to pay more to a business that they believe is doing the right thing with the environment. In our industry that we've been talking about becoming more and more about sort of holistic health and wellness, it's probably a great space for us to lean into on this.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment, Blair. Just completely off topic, but related to what you were saying about people being willing to pay more. We were having a discussion this weekend on my property, which is way out in the country, and my neighbor's got, a farm and is growing all these organic, we go over there and pick the squash and cucumbers and tomatoes and all that. And then we were reminiscing about going to downtown Dallas to the farmer's market and buying produce. And I can remember going with my parents, and that's where you get, great produce. The farmers picked it, they brought it in, it was very inexpensive. Now that's changed. You go down there now, you can still get it, but it's more expensive than the grocery store.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Simon Sinek, which we all know, and what's the why? People buy based on what they believe. People buy based on, you want people that believe what you believe. I don't know if Ben and Jerry's is more or less than other ice cream, but I'm sure that I know they have a cult following based on their philosophies on giving back to certain things. So, it's just an interesting point. Sara, what are you thinking about this before we move on?
Well, I always think about climate change. I'm very cognizant of it, but I worry about this business interruption insurance because we actually ended up getting it because we were worried about not being able to access our computers because of the storms and things like that were happening. And then you see all these things happening in Florida, like a building collapsing. And then, the insurance company goes bankrupt. So that also really is scary. This climate change seems so far away. And I made a joke that you stretched it out and made it work, Bill. But it's the truth. It's not that far away. It's at home. It's affecting all of us.
Yep. And one quick thing before Sarah goes to this next topic, we're getting some great questions in there, and we'll answer those as we get to the end in the 15 minutes post. So excellent questions in there. All right, Sarah.
All right, we're going to shoot you another video. Here we
Yeah,
go.
there you go.
Or maybe not. Well, that touched upon a lot of different topics, but it really makes me think that at first when I read the article and I read the headline, it scared me to death. And I actually emailed Helen Durkin, who's quoted in there, and she took a really positive view of it. And me in my like sunshiny way just looked at it and I'm freaking out because I think about Blockbuster. People love the tactile, having that video right there that you control, and then Netflix comes in and just like wipes them out. So I think about our church is going to come back, our bar is going to come back, our social gathering is going to come back, because we're a social business, being a health club. We need that connection with people. But I look at church, 1/3 of the U.S. adults have watched religious services online or on television, and over half of them, or 18% of all adults, say this is the first time they've done it, and 9 out of 10 say they're going to continue watching, but they're still going to go back. And also they said 54% were very satisfied with online, 37% were somewhat satisfied, and only 8% didn't like watching services online. And bars, you look at what's going on with bars, and they've updated a lot of their technology for checkout with services and the QR codes for getting drinks and things. They have fewer staff. What the bar industry has noticed is these speakeasies, the darker, danker, less clean bars are gone. They're out of business. But the ones that are outdoor and sustainable, they have premium alcohol and premium offerings, different drinks. And the dating apps during the pandemic, Tinder actually grew by 40%, and they set 2 new record highs in January and March of 2020. And it's just Hinge also, which is another app. I have no idea what these are. Please don't start any rumors there. I had to ask my children. 69% said they'd continue using Hinge post-pandemic, and they had tripled their revenue between 2019 and 2020. So I look at this. What do churches, bars, and apps, the social gathering have in common? It's technology. It's customer experience, premium, keeping things clean and safe, and videos. Hinge and Tinder now, instead of just getting a photo and a way to connect, you can upload a video. You connect with people through the video, through the app, through a video. Bars have been posting a lot of videos. Churches are on demand. Just interesting. I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I would argue that Blockbuster did not do the job better, cheaper, or faster than Netflix. And Clayton Christensen in the jobs to be done theory, that's always the question, is people never purchase a product or service. They only hire products and services to do a job better, faster, or cheaper than they can on their own. And so better, faster, and cheaper. And now that we're moving away from weight loss and more towards mental health, and the other thing is exercise don't scale. That is the irreducible essence of this industry. You can only exercise for yourself. I can go online and get my taxes filled out. That can scale. There are many things that can scale, just like delivery of movies online can scale. Exercise doesn't scale. Each person has to do it for themselves and go do the work and sweat.
But as a business, we can scale. As a business, we can reach more people through on demand. We did 13 virtual conventions through the pandemic. We reach people all over the world. I get it that I can't.
If the job to be done is I want to exercise at home, and we're seeing that is not the job to be done for a lot of people right now.
Yeah, I have to say, and I appreciate the fact that we needed to continue our hybrid offering so that there's digital platforms for clubs and there's a lot of online activity. I had the opportunity to see lots of research when I was the interim CEO of IHRSA around the likelihood of people coming back to gyms, dating way back. Now a year ago, surveys were being done, and then 6 months ago, and 9 months ago, and even more recently. Every time they overestimated the likelihood that members would come back to the club incorrectly. Even people that were responding to the surveys. If you've done a lot of research and you studied the science behind that, people are really terrible at predicting their future behaviors. Most of the clubs that have had some runway, had some time to come back, are reporting their membership numbers are better than pre-COVID. Their membership sales are higher than pre-COVID. So, I appreciate the research and the surveys, and there's definitely, I'm not saying that hybrid and virtuals, there's not a place for it, but people are coming back to the gym. And they're coming back in droves for those that are offering it at a really high level. And Blair's seen that, Bill's seen that. I could go on down the list of club operators that are having great success. So,
final point on that, Brent, which is what you said is excellent. What business are you in? To Blair's point, better, cheaper, faster. Blockbuster wasn't in the business of delivering entertainment wherever you are at your convenience. Blockbuster was in the rental of videos business, so if you're in the rental of equipment business, you're going to have issues versus if you're in the delivering fitness outcomes to people wherever they are, and preferably in your club socializing so they get the mental benefits as well. Anyway, go ahead, Blair.
All right, on to the GYMS Act. So an update on the GYMS Act. And this will be part of the final section on here too. And so we have, actually, as of today, we have 155 co-sponsors in the House and 17 in the Senate. It's important to note, you'll notice the plus by the Senate number there, that they're not in right now. So the Senate returns the 13th of September and the House the 20th of September. So if you've been going into quorum and kind of seeing those numbers static, it's because there's no kind of clerical process taking place that's updating those numbers. So I happen to know that Senator Patty Murray from the state of Washington is co-sponsoring this bill and is a big supporter of this bill. She and Maria Cantwell were both sponsors of Save Our Stages, SOS. You can see the comparison to restaurants and stage sponsors below. If I were a betting man, oh yeah, I am. If I were a betting man about 6 months ago, 3 months ago, I'd have said we have less than a 50% shot at this. I think now incredible work by IHRSA, by Rex, by the National Health and Fitness Alliance. I think we're better than probably 70% to actually get something passed. It may not look exactly like this. It might not be exactly 30 billion, and it might not be a maximum of 20 million. But I think we are highly likely to, I think we're quite likely to get something passed at this point. Brent?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway is you can kind of see some of the numbers here from the restaurants and stages. And as an industry, we're right there. We're really positioned well. Blair, Bill, and Sara and I were having a conversation pre this launch of the meeting today about the likelihood of the GEMS Act moving forward, and we're all bullish on it more than we have been in the past, based on these numbers, based on what we're hearing from our lobbyists at IHRSA. We really got some good momentum, and I feel like the time is right, and it's got a really good chance of helping our industry in a huge, huge way.
Excellent. We don't have to cover off on this too much more. We can move to the next topic, but I think it's really important. Everybody knows what's happening with the GEMS Act, and you understand the details of the GEMS Act and the impact that it can have on your business. Up to 45% of 2019 revenue, depending on how hard you were impacted. Another 20% for the people that were impacted the most. It's probably going to be net of PPP and what Bill's about to talk about, the employee retention tax credit, but still, it is a significant number and gets you back in the game. And if you're a vendor supplier out there, you should be really going and talking to your centers, because it changes how people are going to do CapEx, what they're going to spend, and just how fast this industry can bounce back.
Yeah, I know, by the way,
Oops.
I'm sorry, before we go to the next topic, just real quick, Blair, I think it's really important too to, I'll throw my IHRSA interim hat back on just for a minute, but the progress we've made in the House of Representatives and with the senators, and just politically overall as an industry, thanks to Gail Landers and Kevin McHugh and so many others, has been tremendous. And that's going to serve our industry well,
Right.
even after COVID, regardless of whether the GEMS Act gets passed. And we really are very optimistic about that. But we're setting the stage for the future. We've lamented the fact that we didn't have the connections. We didn't have the grassroots movement. We weren't a part of the process and didn't have a seat at the table. That has absolutely changed at this point. We're in the conversations, we're at the table, we're talking to the right people, we've enlisted support. And so we're positioning our industry beyond even what's right in front of us right now. I just want to make sure everybody understands that we're building a brighter future through this process.
And we cannot limit it to just club owners. You
That's
guys,
right.
The difference is there's 650,000 restaurants, there's 40,000, 50,000 health clubs. Okay, we don't have enough owners. Group fitness instructors, personal trainers, clients, they can go on and they can tell their senators and their representatives that this is important to them, that their fitness center, that their health and their wellness is important to them. We've got to go broader. And I really enjoy that and I appreciate that. Maybe Tom can throw in the chat the link so that everybody can go and just, log in one more time, send that information.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Exactly. All right, Bill, the segue over to the employee retention tax credit, which again is extremely important to our industry. We got some news recently about that, and I just want to make sure, I know you do as well, that everybody's aware of what's happening so they can do a little research and make a decision about how they can take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We got the news that the employee retention credit or employee retention tax credit would end at the end of September. And most of us expected, and it was slated to end at the end of the year. So part of this new legislation is to end it early. That's bad news for any of us that were taking advantage of that, the benefits of that program. Now, here's the good news. This was an open-ended funding mechanism. It didn't have a set amount of dollars. It was $5,000 per employee that didn't have a limited amount of money. It doesn't run out of money. It was just there. You have 3 years to go back and amend your filings on your payroll taxes. So if you did not take advantage of the ERC or ERTC, you need to talk to your tax accountant and look at that and consider going back after that money. Now, you couldn't do it during the same pay periods that you had the PPP money. You had to do it as different pay periods, but after PPP, you could then take on the employee retention tax credit and work with that. So it's a big deal. what's going on with this latest legislation is Labor Day, they're sunsetting plans for the additional bonus on unemployment. They also are in the process in the same legislation of doubling the size of IRS tax enforcement. So you might have more opportunities to be audited. You have more opportunities for employees to come back to work because they're not going to get the same unemployment benefits, but we're not getting the tax credit going past Q3. If you haven't looked at it, look at it. It's a lot of money. And it's applicable to pretty much most of us in this industry based on our size. So please don't just take that as words floating through a webinar. Go look at that thing and see if you can amend and if you haven't taken advantage.
It's real money. And I think part of that amendment can be if you didn't utilize the PPP, if you didn't optimize the PPP by having 40% go to other expenses other than payroll, you might have a chance, I think, when you amend. What that does then, it allows you to get more money from the employee retention tax credit. So it's complex, so don't do it on your own. But it's real money and it's real help. It's taken a long time, is what we've discovered from the time people apply and kind of get kind of dragged through the knothole of the process until checks start to land. But
well, Blair, it depends on how you process it. Like ADP processes it for us with each payroll. So we've been getting, the checks come delayed, but the immediate credits with what you're paying today in your taxes is immediate. So whoever you process your payroll processor, whoever your payroll processor is, check with them as well as your accountant, because they can set this up automatically for you. And they probably have a mechanism to go back and amend.
Great point.
And it can be automated, but also they retain the records from 2020. If you had a full-time employee, all you had to prove is that you're 50% down in business and you got $5,000 for the year. But now it's $7,000 per quarter. And you can definitely get it in 2021 for the first quarter and the second quarter. It's this third and fourth that we're concerned that we may not get. You have to prove you're 20% down.
Okay, let's not confuse everybody with all the details.
But it's important.
Right.
ERTC is good. Go talk to your professional accountant and your payroll processor and make sure you take advantage of it if you can.
And don't listen to Sara.
You got me down in a rabbit hole now. I'm going, wait a minute.
I'm sorry. I'm very excited. This can save your business.
It's a huge amount of money. And we've had the benefit of this because we've retained our people. And
right. You paid the taxes and the government's supporting you back. And that's the bottom line. And since they're getting rid of unemployment, or at least sunsetting it, that's a very kind way of saying they're black holing it. But they're going to probably stop with this because of the budget. They'll stop. They won't give it for third and fourth quarter.
They're going to keep unemployment. They're just going to get rid of the unemployment bonus, the extra unemployment.
Right.
All right.
Blair, end us on a real positive note there, buddy.
I'm going to end us on a real positive. Now, I'm going to start just with Wenatchee Valley in Wenatchee, Washington. And for the months of May, June, July, and part of August, we have seen the biggest sales we have ever seen in our history and the lowest cancellations we have ever seen in our history. All of that came to a bit of a screeching halt on Monday when mask mandates went back in. I've heard this from large operators across the country and small operators. So this is now all the more reason to make sure the GYMS Act goes through. And by the way, we didn't lose any health clubs in this market. So I'm not picking up members from somebody that closed. In fact, right as we came out of the pandemic, we have our first Planet Fitness in this market. So we added supply to this market, but the demand is there. And we're feeling that strongly in our own clubs locally. Now let's zoom out. Baird is very strong on, Baird Investments is very strong on the fitness sector. They're projecting Planet to do very well. In another article, Morgan Stanley has said, has kind of listed Planet as being overweight. In our world, that's not great. In the world of stocks, that's excellent. And they think that they are underpriced by about $25 a share. Why is that? The reason is because they're seeing so many people come back to those clubs. Some of the fears that were out there about people coming back are going away. You're also seeing a lot of the in the club world, the groups that are backed by private equity, doubling down on their private equity investments and trying to get more space. One of the things that I was most surprised at on this bounce back, though, is an article from Financial Times from August 5th about Barry's Boot Camp, and it's almost solely about studios. Remember what we were saying a year ago? My God, how are studios going to come back? Well, it turns out they're coming back with a vengeance, with a lot of them well over 100% of where they were before. I just think that is fabulous news. I think the shift in how people are thinking with weight loss becoming lower on the list of motivators, that's fabulous news for us. The other fabulous news is that more and more healthcare, it's how they want to use us, I hope changes. It's less about how we want to use them, I think, and more about how they want to use us. Lastly, and Brent really hit on this when we were talking about the GYMS Act, and it's the political throw weight of our industry. And that's something, even if the GYMS Act didn't pass, we have new political throw weight. We had a call. I was really thankful to Francesca Schuler the other day. She set up a call for the leads of all the state alliances. We have another call with the new CEO of IHRSA next week, and with members of the National Health and Fitness Alliance to figure out how to maintain kind of that, that new sort of infrastructure that we got in place. How are we going to do that without just depending on people in our state alliances that are volunteering their time? There is a tremendous amount of positivity for our industry if we can hang in there. If the GYMS Act passes, the hang in there goes through the roof. So I think we have a lot of industry tailwind.
Yeah, two other points I'll throw onto that to add to what you're saying, Blair, is Credit Suisse, which is another huge financial investment institution. They've developed a complete vertical dedicated to the wellness sector, which they're one of the first financial institutions to really, break it out. I mean, they have categories of technology and software and, retail, real estate, and now they've developed a sector around wellness, which is, that in itself tells a pretty big story. And then the Global Wellness Institute continues to send out information. I was reading some of their updates just earlier this week about this whole explosion around the wellness sector, not in maybe the traditional sense, but as far as how people are using active vacations. And they're looking for active experiences in a lot of unique and different ways. So just the growth around that whole segment, including, of course, the recovery section, which we've talked about in previous sections on this talk show, the recovery and how that's a big part of wellness as well. Not only mental health, but physical recovery as well.
Yep, excellent.
And I look at this, I love the way you're painting it so positively, Blair. And I think that we need to take a step back a little bit also and look at things historically. When we look at what happened with the Spanish flu, when we look at the previous pandemic, it took them 2 years to get out of it. And I know we've got more technology now and we sped up the vaccine as quickly as we could, but we're not at that 2-year mark yet. So right. We're going to have a little bit of a fallback with another variant, and we're going to pull back out of that, and we might have another little one. But I agree with you, Blair. I think we're gonna pull out strong.
Well, I think that is so spot on too, right? Be prepared for some more mask mandates. Be prepared for a bit more pain. I want to just, I know we're going to go into the Q&A here afterwards, but while we're on that topic, there was a question about how our members responded to the mask mandate. Mm-hmm. I think it helps to have a hyper localized voice and a lot of following on social media. And we made it a point. We said, this is 100% about our teams and our staff and what's going to bring their job joy and what they have to, how they can deal with the least amount of anguish. Our membership base has responded fabulously, with the exception of one person. It has put a damper on sales, to Sarah's point. I watch the trends in the data for cases, for deaths. I look at that locally here to try to kind of predict where we might be locally. But yeah, I think hang in there. Let all the more reason for the GYMS Act to go through.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
We're not going to do the, I don't think we're going to do the recap. I think we put the resources in the chat box through today. I can do the recap, but I think most of it's
Right.
already in the chat box. So Brent, I
Okay.
suggest we skip the recap and just go to the information we provided and go straight to Q&A.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. And Blair, since you were talking about the mask mandates, the question I saw there was exactly, so what was the response? I know you said you only had to call the police once, but anything else you can add a little color around that, you or Bill, either one, where you've reinstituted the mask requirement?
Yeah, it wasn't, I mean, it was kind of grudging acceptance, right? I mean, I've told people, I don't want to do a mask mandate. I don't want to work out in a mask. I'm vaccinated. I don't think I should have to, but we are going to do it. And the reason we're going to do it is to protect our employees. So there's been just slightly begrudging compliance, but there's only been one person that wanted to make a political statement. Funny thing was, I posted a video and I said, day one of vaccines, we only had to call the police once. And I said, our members have been fabulous. We did ask somebody to leave. They said they wouldn't leave and they wouldn't wear a mask. So we ended up wasting the police's time, to come in and they were fabulous. Wenatchee Police Department was awesome, by the way. And then I sort of posed the question, what's your point? Right? I mean, these are frontline workers that are trying to do their job. I'm all for you making a political statement, just not in my frickin' gym. Go to Olympia. I'm all for you doing it in Olympia. Don't do it here. What you should be asking yourself in any community when you walk in is, how can I make the life easier for those frontline workers, whether they're in a restaurant or a gym or a bank?
Be kind to everyone always.
That's
And
right.
You cover
Yeah.
that. We're Michelle Wong just sent me some stats from our clubs, Brent, to that question. Our cancellations and our holds are up. Most of our members have been cooperative, but when the staff aren't around, they're dropping their masks. So there's a lot of reminding going on. And I said, we had the shoving incident where we canceled a membership and had the police, come and de-escalate. But people are still running hot on emotions.
Yeah.
Right. So another question from somebody all of us know, Paula, who's been on our panel a year or so ago as a guest, is just reminding us that we probably need to make sure we're recommending that people check with their legal counsel about requiring the vaccine. She says, she kind of wants to hear a little bit more about our thoughts about the vaccine requirement for employees. Her legal counsel has indicated to her that that's really a gray area when you begin requiring that for your employees, because then you lead to medical exemptions, religious exemptions, giving them the opportunity to work from home, perhaps giving them alternatives, those kinds of things. And then also requiring it of the members, which she said is maybe not so gray of an area, according to her legal counsel, because members can choose to go somewhere else. So some of you that have weighed in on that a little more, Bill, maybe you're closer to that than anyone on the call. Can you offer an insight on that, you and Sara?
I think there's certain I think it's a state by state kind of thing to consider for the most part. I mean, Texas and Florida, you can't require, anybody to be vaccinated or wear a mask. And you're going to have different things. We don't think it's an issue based on our counsel to require staff as long as you're abiding by the carved out exemptions. So we don't think overall it's a big issue for us, but again, that's something you need to talk to your lawyer about based on where you are.
Okay.
Oh, Sarah's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sara is.
Talk to Sara.
It's based on the American Disabilities Act. It's like, can you require something that not everybody can do? It's if you treat everyone even-handedly, it's been upheld that you can require vaccination. You can require vaccination of your staff, and you can limit entry into your facility. If it's private business, you can limit entry if someone is unvaccinated. So this has been, it's permissible. It's completely permissible. That's my understanding. And I just looked at it again this morning because I thought this may come up with the masks and VASK that Blair did.
All right. Another question's about the information that we were sharing, and it's people are asking where can they find that? It's the COVID era fitness consumer report. Again, you can find it on IHRSA's website, IHRSA.org, IHRSA Foundation, COVID era fitness consumer report. It's free for everyone to get that information. We can probably also drop it in the chat, so maybe you can get a copy in that way from there. Another one, Blair. Let's see. Nope, you answered that one. Let's see. Yep. Any other questions that we have coming in from the audience that y'all see?
Tom, thanks for putting that link in.
We got time for my recap then.
Yeah, do your recap.
Got the recap. I just didn't know if we were having time, but if we've got a few minutes, I'll throw a recap out there.
Okay, can I one quick thing? This question: are the SGW videos available online anywhere?
Yeah, I put them up. We're going to put them up on LinkedIn so everybody can copy them, and we'll also put the direct link. So if you guys want to use it and spread it, because it's important. This stuff is important, and we'll put all the videos up.
Yeah, kudos to Mike Lieber on your team there too.
He's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, he does a good job. He works hard.
Yep, Bill, go ahead with your
your so real quick, just what we covered. Thanks, Brent. Brent covered the top three. People want to be more active. Mental well-being is more important, and weight loss dropped to number 3, where it historically has been number 1. Step away or step in with Sara. Take time to make the right decision. I love the quote that you threw out. The mind is the greatest asset or the world's greatest prison. You know, that's such a true statement. And I thought that was pretty strong. Dedication, sacrifice, focus. You know, we've got 22% of the clubs have closed for various reasons. Paying attention to those decisions and stepping in versus stepping out. Do you know the health of the U.S.? Brent threw out some really interesting stuff that we kind of covered in great detail. You know, the orthopedic issues for those over 60, the obesity rate of 40+%. You know, bottom line is we have solutions for all these things, and paying attention in how we address them with the consumers versus just thinking they're cool stats. Vax up and mask up. Blair. What do you do here? Do you follow the government mandates or do you do your own thing? You know, where's testing come in? We've spent some time on that with some of the issues and kind of where we are in Wenatchee and where we are with active. So we won't spend much more time on that, but it's you know, it's a big deal with where we are with employees and staff. Climate change, looking at it from a lens of how it impacts your business and how it impacts your reputation and how it impacts your place with identity and your brand. Sara jumped back in with, will gyms go the way of Blockbuster? I think the answer was, God, I hope not. You know, she talked about technology, customer experience, and video, the power of video, and I agree with her 100%. Blair jumped in with better, cheaper, faster. You know, what business are you in, and does it scale? Exercise, doing exercise. Well, let me quote Blair exactly as he said it. Exercise don't scale. That's what he said. Number 7, we hit with the Gyms Act with Blair. We're at 154 House members, 17 plus senators. Keep supporting this thing. You know, even if it doesn't pass, to Blair's point, it still gives us a lot of ammo and a lot of reputation, and a lot of deposits in government. But let's make it pass. You know, I'm optimistic it's going to pass. Blair's very optimistic it's going to pass. Keep supporting that thing. Don't let up. ERTC, look at it. Find out if you're eligible. Don't waste that opportunity. How's the world doing here? The tailwinds. It appears that we all should be doing business in Wenatchee, Washington. Blair's got no issues. He's, you know, he's got increased demand with increased supply, and everything's just perfect there in Wenatchee. So, you know, maybe we all do a field trip to Wenatchee to see how he's doing it there. There was optimism with some of the public companies, and the big news that Blair hit on was, or the big surprise is, hey, studios are coming back stronger than ever. And we may have indexed that a little wrong in the past when we thought they were going to be struggling more so. So that's really good news for everybody. And wellness sector is growing, as Brent brought us home at the end of the session. and the desire for wellness experiences is growing. So not only are you providing fitness, you're providing wellness, and what can you do outside your four walls to create trips and experiences and activities and adventures that fit the lifestyle that people are wanting to embrace. There's your recap.
Great.
Nice job.
Good job, Bill. Thank you for
Boom.
doing that. We got time for a couple more questions. I'll throw a couple out. One, they're asking, do anyone here remember us referencing a lender for studios? They're asking, was that the
No,
information you brought up, Blair?
Yeah, I saw that. I mentioned the article came from the Financial Times, but I did not mention a lender.
Okay.
So yeah, that might have been where that got conflated.
All right, great. And then another question, which we didn't have this on our subject matter this time, but we spoke about it last month and perhaps 2 months ago, and that is just still the challenge of finding staff. Again, everywhere here in Texas you go, I mean, everywhere, whether it's retail, restaurant, bar, health club, everybody's looking for staff. Anything new that you've heard or that you're doing, Bill, Blair, to recruit staff for your clubs?
We're paying more, right? I mean, that's been the starting point, you know.
Hey, what do you mean by that? Like how much you paying a frontline person, Blair?
$15.
Okay.
And then we changed our levels for both front desk roles and trainer roles so that they can actually move up even higher than we had before. So we've kind of recategorized. But as we do that, you know, I mean, you know, we're looking for ways to have fewer employees. We can pay fewer employees more money and try to make this be a, you know, an equation that doesn't just erode EBITDA.
Yeah. Okay.
We're actually doing better than I would have thought at the GM level. You know, I think I shared in a previous show that we lost 2 GMs, and that's really uncommon for us. We brought back an employee that we wanted to bring back, and then we hired a very experienced general manager, and filled both of those roles very quickly with some amazing talent. But we're still struggling at the you know, frontline levels. But on the management level, we're actually doing better than I thought we would be doing, and you know, that's a testament to not me but my team. So I do think there's, at the manager level, there's still a lot of opportunity for people to be hired. I think we're still struggling at that frontline level.
Okay.
We found that people that want to shift their careers and go into a healthier environment, those are the ones that are easier to recruit. So highlighting that was a benefit. So I thought that was really very helpful. But I also see so many group fitness instructors are still underemployed. Like they get 1 or 2 classes a week where they used to have 5 or 6. So maybe those are some of the people that you can pull in as front desk staff and whatnot. But here in Chicago, there is such a shortage, especially since the college kids went back. I don't know if you guys have experienced it. Since the college kids went back, it's like the restaurants, they can't find waiters and waitresses. They can't find people to work in the floor, in the gym, and the front desk and things like that. So I think it's also seasonal.
Right. Right. Another one is, we had mentioned, and I don't remember if it was me or one of you had mentioned that the recovery of our industry, once you've had some runtime, I think I said that, has been really great. And Blair mentioned he had the best, I believe I'm quoting you correctly, the best ever membership sales last month. And
May, June, and July, all 3 months.
So I don't have hard data, but I can tell you anecdotally from leading the roundtables. So I have about 60 club owners in my roundtables, and we have these discussions every couple of weeks. And they're all seeing great returns, record numbers, kind of what Blair's seeing as well. Now, of course, as Blair also said, that came to an abrupt halt when they reissued the mask mandates. So, you know, depending on where you are geographically in the country, there may be some fallout. Or at least some pullback from those record numbers. But the recovery of our industry, again, once you've got a little bit of lead time without the mask mandates, has been really, really encouraging. No doubt about it.
Well, there was some pent up demand that popped in the beginning, and then it wasn't bad. It was as good as before, if not a little better in a lot of places. And then, wheels fell off again for a lot of our locations.
Yeah, and I think, that next inflection point that we were all looking for, which was kids back in school full time, that's, we were all kind of bracing for what we thought was going to be an incredibly strong fall. I mean, it's like our market is ready for us to have an incredibly strong fall and then winter quarter. And I'll just tell you that mask mandate puts a real damper on it. And then our state came back over the top with some, very strict ways to fine businesses and punish businesses if they're out of compliance. Now, I don't know if they have the policing ability to do that, but I think this goes back to what Sarah's point was, but we got to be ready for,
We got to be ready to go. We're going to go back again and go forward. And because Pfizer got approved, approval from the CDC, Moderna is going to be quick behind. Pfizer just was quicker to update their information or supply their information. Moderna is going to come back and going to get approved very quickly. And so is Johnson & Johnson. And once that happens, there's going to be, hopefully, more people are going to get vaccinated. There's going to be fewer cases. It's going to go down and we're going to get our masks off. And Blair is going to make even more money that he can gamble away.
All right. So we're at the end of our time today. I want to thank everybody for joining us again. Please come back. We'll be seeing you hopefully all once again in September. I believe our show's on September the 15th. So we'll see you next month. Until then, keep it going, everyone. We look forward to having you back.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Bye.
Everybody.